better unit in that game with what they did. They did some really interesting things. It was all predicated on one thing, in my view, the fact that Marshawn Lattimore just took Evans right out of the game, because that allowed them to do a whole bunch of other things. They doubled Gronk a number of times. They doubled Godwin a number of times, all because they could match up Lattimore one-on-one on Evans, and Evans was not a factor in the game. Now, did Brady make a couple of poor decision-making throws? He did. By the way, the interception that was turned for a touchdown was not a poor decision. It was just a really poor throw. He threw it way too far to the inside. Jenkins was a retreating, he was not retreating, but he didn't jump the route. If the ball was thrown where it should have been, it would not have been an interception, and in fact, likely would have been a completion.
I said Minnesota has lost 5 starters from last year's defense. And whether it's injuries, free agency, or getting expensive, I just don't think it looks quite the same as it did about 2 years ago. So when you looked at the tape of Aaron Rodgers, was he great? Or maybe is Minnesota kind of out of that Super Bowl window defensively and just don't bring the same speed and athleticism they did last year and the year before?
Oh, Aaron Rodgers was great in this game. He played as well as I think he's played in a while in terms of playing within structure, and he still has the ability then to make that outside of structure play like the touchdown to Adams. But Minnesota has gone through major changes at corner, and that's where the issue potentially comes in. They're playing different people. They're playing the rookie Dantzler. They're playing Hill, who's I think he's a second-year player. They're bigger corners. But the thing that really stood out with their defense, Colin, is they played a lot more man-to-man coverage than we're used to seeing. They are normally a higher percentage zone coverage defense. That's what they've been under Mike Zimmer. They played a lot of man coverage, almost 50%. And maybe they feel that's the best way that their new corners can play. And there were, by the way, a couple of throws Rodgers made where the coverage was good, but Rodgers just was so precise with his ball placement. You couldn't have handed it to his receivers any better.
Okay, the New York Jets. Is it Gase? Is it Darnold? Is it personnel? Is it 4 new offensive linemen? Who's to blame for, I thought, the ugliest performance all weekend?
Well, I want to ask you one question. By the way, I did a deep dive on Sam Darnold this summer, probably watched 350 dropbacks, and then I watched him this past week. Let me ask you this, because Adam Gase seems to be an easy target, which I don't understand. Whose fault is it when the quarterback misses open receivers?
That's the quarterback's fault.
I would say so. Sam Darnold has a lot of things that he needs to work through. I think he's got ability. I don't think he has great ability. He's got ability. He tends to be a little frenetic in the pocket. He tends to perceive pressure and leave the pocket too early. He's an off-balance thrower, which a lot of people raved about when he came out of USC, that he can throw from all these different platforms. But the problem with that is you're never consistent with your accuracy. His feet and his eyes don't work together very often. So he misses a lot of throws. And he'll always make a few where you go, wow, he can do that. But he needs to become far more consistent with his mechanics and to become far more consistent with his ball placement. The reality is you can do 10 things right as a quarterback, but if you can't put the ball where you want to, you've got nothing.
Another young quarterback, Drew Lock. Now, he's got weapons. They got backs. They got some really interesting weapons in Denver. What did you see on Monday night? What did the film say about Denver's Drew Lock?
Well, it's funny because I looked at all of Lock's snaps over this summer from last year, and I was impressed. And then in this game, again, what always stands out to me with Lock, going back to last year, is he plays with poise. He plays with composure, both in and out of the pocket. He's pretty consistently accurate. Now, he's got a few things to work on mechanically as well. He tends to drift a little bit and open up his hips, and that can sometimes cause some problems. But from what I've seen of Drew Lock through last year's, I think 6 or 7 starts, and week 1 this year, I think Drew Lock will be a very solid player. There's no question about his arm. He can make every throw. I think he can throw with some pace and touch. I thought Drew Lock was pretty impressive.
Yeah, so did I. Big Ben, nice to have him back. Nothing against Duck Hodges, but it was nice to have Big Ben back. And as Joy and I were talking about, nobody drafts wide receivers like Pittsburgh. It's been 15 years. They've just always got a couple of good young players. What did you make of Big Ben? Did you see rust, or was it the same old Ben?
No. Well, first of all, I have to give a ton of credit to that coaching staff. I thought Big Ben was great, by the way, and I was really pleased to see that. But they played a Giants defense that's from the Bill Belichick school due to their head coach, Judge, and their DC, Patrick Graham, who both have big backgrounds with Belichick. So the Giants played a ton of man-to-man coverage. And that Pittsburgh staff did a great job schematically with man-beater concepts, setting up Ben really nicely. But Ben made some great throws, and I thought he played extremely well.
Oh, that's good for the Pittsburgh Steelers because we know defensively they have excellent personnel. That can't be denied on the defensive side. They've got playmakers. Now, I'm going to ask you about a quarterback who I watched him a lot in college because I'm from Washington State. And the more I watch him, at some point I can have my doubts. But Gardner Minshew gets the football to where it should be. He maybe doesn't have the perfect size, but, after a while, he's not working with much, Greg. And when guys doing something without much support, is he a franchise quarterback?
Well, you know me, Colin. I do the tape, and I watched, being home a lot this summer. He's another guy I watched last year, probably 350 snaps in week one. And this will come across, I'm sure, as a big, bold, controversial statement, but I don't believe the Jaguars need a quarterback. I think Gardner Minshew can play quarterback in this league and be very effective. Now, is Gardner Minshew going to be a top 2 or 3 quarterback and be a Hall of Famer? Who can answer those kinds of questions? But he's a solid NFL starting quarterback. That's not the problem for the Jaguars. Gardner Minshew is refined. He's accurate. He's got a good feel in the pocket. He's got deceptive movement ability. There's really nothing not to like about the way Gardner Minshew plays quarterback.
How about that? Who needs Trevor Lawrence? Forget that guy.
I told you, hey, I've been doing this a long time like you, Colin. I know how all that comes across, believe me. But I'm just telling you what the tape shows. This guy is a good NFL quarterback.
Wow. How it's funny about this. He and Baker had the same college numbers the last year. They both ran the same offense, one with Lincoln Riley, one with Mike Leach. So it's very, by the way, one guy played with NFL guys, one guy played with junior college guys who are now, working like the rest of us. So there is something to be said. The guy in college, surrounded by average players, put up very good numbers. Now, Joe Burrow. Now, again, my eyes, I liked it. I thought he was calm.
Right.
I thought he had a very good. I thought he had a very good drive at the end after a terrible mistake.
Yeah.
What did the tape say? I like Burrow.
Yeah, he missed a couple of throws, and I thought there were a few times he rushed himself. But I think overall, what I really like about Burrow, and this was true his last year at LSU, actually it was true the year before at LSU as well, is he's very composed. He's very poised. We have to stop saying, too, that he's a deceptively good athlete. He's a good athlete. And he can make plays with his legs, both to move, to throw, and to run and make plays. So I think he'll continue to get better as he works more with this group of receivers. They had a couple of snaps, I think, where they actually had 5 wide receivers on the field. So I think that Zach Taylor, I think who's going to be pretty creative now that he has Joe Burrow. I think there's a lot we're going to see as this year progresses.
All right. There's no deep threat on New England's roster. They went really retro.
No.
They went retro, baby. They went 1978 NFL. Were you surprised how effective it was, Cam Newton and the Patriots?
Well, I think that Bill Belichick's playing to Cam Newton right now, and the fact that Newton got there late, so they played to his running ability. They were very multiple with their run game, and of course, Newton can do that. The pass game was probably pre-remedial in elementary. My guess is that will get better as the season progresses, but we know Bill Colin, all he's concerned about now is beating Seattle. He's not concerned about what his pass game might look like in 8 or 9 weeks. So he wanted to beat Miami, and this is how they beat Miami. They had some very interesting run game concepts with Newton. And one thing Newton, I think, does better than any quarterback in the league when it comes to the run game, he exaggerates that mesh point. He holds that ball with the running back, and as a defense, your eyes just don't know where to go. Do you go to the running back? Do you stay with Newton? Newton is, to me, the best in the league at that part of the quarterback run game.
So your play of the day, your play of the week is with Russell Wilson. So before you go into the play, I thought he was terrific.
He's good, by the way. Russell Wilson's pretty good.
And he's also ascending. I think over the last 10 games, he's played some of his best football. Talk about Russell, and then you can move into your big play of the week.
Well, I had to pick an MVP for somebody this year, and I picked Russell Wilson this year to be the league MVP. And I tell you what was interesting about Seattle, and maybe they'll do this all year, we don't know, but they had 28 first downs, not including the kneel down at the end of the game. And on 17 of those, he dropped back to pass. They'd have